Hey guys, this is Vineet. So here we are live and there is a proper information for all of you. आप सभी के लिए एक simple information है that we are working on my studio. It is almost finalized. As I told you that I have got a board in my home. Like this is my house. This is my bedroom actually. So practically this board was just to show that the video is going on. So it was not a practical thing to keep a board in the bedroom and every day I have to arrange camera, you have to arrange things. So I have got a proper studio in my neighborhood. So now I have 3 studios, 2 in office, 1 proper studio in my neighborhood. Things are almost arranged and within 4 to 5 days I will be able to take long classes. As in my offline batch, when I teach my normal average class, it goes by 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Extended classes in one single go, I take like classes for 4 to 5 hours. Maximum 5 hours tak. Isme students are allowed. They get up, they go out for washroom, they come back, this set, right? In between, sometimes I also get a water bottle or a tea. So I will be able to take long classes for you, and that will start within 10 days. Next 10 days, everything will start. Now this is the special lecture for Renewal Advanced course. So I'll repeat once again. This is a special lecture for the old online batch student. Old online batch. Why? Because old online batch student or the old students have studied structuralism and post-structuralism. So here I'm going to deal with post-structuralist theory. In post-structuralist theory, I'm going to talk about the most important concept called intertextuality. So if you are a new student, technically it is only for the old online batch student, because a new student will not understand this theory. Structuralism, post-structuralism, deconstruction. So old online batch students or offline batch students who are watching this video in renewal batch, only these people can understand. That's the thing. It is advanced level lecture. Now let's go for it. So first thing that you have to do, write down this thing. We are going to deal with intertextuality. Normally when students read intertextuality, it comes in post-structuralism. In post-structuralism, when you study intertextuality, people just know that it has been coined by Julia Kristeva. So सबसे पहले, the first thing that comes in your exam is, who has coined the term? ये word किसने coin किया है? तो coinage is by Julia Kristeva. Point to be noted, पहले note कर लो. Julia Kristeva, the post-structuralist critic, has coined this term intertextuality. Second thing, which is very important, in which book the term has been coined? So, Desire in Language. Complete title, A Semiotic Approach to Literature and Art. So, write on this point. This is very important. And you can see it in the board. It's quite clear for all of you. Let's see how many of you are live. Approx 30 students are live. The link has been shared to your groups. So, first thing, most important point, basic repeated question. Who has coined the term intertextuality? Julia Kristeva. This name, very important name. Plus Desire in Language. Complete title of the book, A Semiotic Approach to Literature and Art. This term was coined by 1960s. ये 1960s के समय की term है that was coined. अब यहाँ पे एक important point रहेगा. There is an important point that you have to understand. Here most of the students make a mistake. The mistake they make is that intertextuality, the term intertextuality, is it only related to Julia Kristeva or others? So here you have to remember, these 3 people are called the father of the theory of intertextuality. So first thing that you have to understand, these 3 people, now write down their name in a proper way. Let's write down their names in proper way. Mikhail Bakhtin, the first one, Mikhail Bakhtin, the man who has given the words like monologism, dialogism. Second one is Roland Barthes. We call it Roland Barthes, or you can just call it Roland Barthes. Third is Ferdinand de Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist. These are the first people who actually talked about the word called intertextuality. Julia Kristeva used the term intertextuality, so coined it. But the idea, the process of intertextuality was already done. Means these people were already dealing with the idea of intertextuality. Julia Kristeva just gave a term. So Julia Kristeva's idea is related to term only. But if they ask you, suppose a tough question I paper mein, how they'll ask you a tough question? They simply say, pick the one who has not dealt with intertextuality. वो बोलेंगे इनमें से कौन ऐसा है जिसने intertextuality से deal नहीं किया है? So they will not give you the option of Julia Kristeva. They will give you these three options and one more name. So what will you do at that time if Julia Kristeva is not in the options? So here you have to remember, Bakhtin deals with the idea of intertextuality. Roland Barthes deals with the idea of intertextuality. Ferdinand de Saussure deals with the idea of intertextuality. ये सारे concepts, ये सारे points ready कर लो because they are going to be asked in your exam. Now, the important point. अब आएगा important point. These are the facts. ये fact oriented हैं. Remember Sukirti, इस बार की UGC Net India topper, UGC Net English India topper from offline batch. If you have to beat her record, उसका record अगर तोड़ना है 71.33% का, तो study like a champ. Now, see, question comes, what is intertextuality? ये है क्या? अब पहले ये तो करो, intertextuality होती क्या है? Intertext. Intertext is simply there is one text, there is another text, they are interrelationship. A relationship between the text. A relation between the text, two text, three text, four text. दो किताबों के बीच में आपस का relation या relational study करना, that is intertextuality. It's easy. ये आपको tough लग रहा होगा. You must be thinking it's a tough theory. No, it's not tough. Professors make it tough when they teach you sometimes. My effort is to make it easy, to make you understand. It's not a tough theory. बहुत simple theory है, बहुत simple. Intertextuality is when you take references of multiple books to say something, to write something. So this is a text. This is a text. This is a text. Let's say text 1, text 2, text 3. Any interconnection between these books in between is called intertextuality. Text के बीच में आपस में जो भी relation है, one text talks about another text, one character appears in another text, it is intertextuality. Simple है, it's very simple. If I ask you, write an article, write an essay about India, so will you be able to write an essay about India? Suppose I ask you, write 10 lines about India. How many of you can write 10 lines about India? You all can write, right? सब लिख सकते हो. But when I ask you, okay, tell me this. If you all can write, just tell me this thing. Just tell me this. If I ask you that, okay, you have written, which book did you use? So will you be able to say only one book? क्या बोलोगे sir, only one book? No. You know about India because you have read many books about India, many books. So the idea of India comes from your collective knowledge. Idea of India comes from your collective knowledge, right? That is intertextual analysis. My knowledge is not based on one history book, one history of English literature. I have read many history of English literature books, taking the references of all the books, compiling knowledge in my mind. I have my own knowledge, that is intertextual knowledge. Now, I hope you understood. It's very easy, it's not tough. Let's take one more example. Let's take one more example. Victorian literature. So these are 4 books, 4 different books. Book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. These are 4 different books. Book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. Now, you all are my students and I ask you, write an essay on Victorian literature. Tell me about Victorian literature. Now, suppose one of you has read Dickensian novel. You have read Dickens. आपने Charles Dickens को पढ़ा हुआ है. But you just know Charles Dickens, nobody else. You will write about Victorian literature. Another person has read Browning also. इसने Browning को पढ़ा है, Robert Browning, or we can say a poet. One novelist, one poet you have read. Another person will say, sir, मैंने political novels पढ़े हैं, Anthony Trollope के. So मैंने Anthony Trollope के political novels पढ़े हैं. Fourth person will say, sir, I have read Charles Darwin, scientific theories. Now, you all have read one book. Somebody has read one book. Then somebody says, I have read one book. Then तीसरा बोलेगा, sir, मैंने भी एक ही किताब पढ़ी है. 4 people, just one book you have read. So your essay on Victorian literature will be dependent on one book. Then comes a smart student. फिर एक smart student आता है. वो कहता है, sir, I have read this also, this also, this also, and this also. मैंने novel पढ़ा है. I've read novel, I've read poetry, I've read political novels, I have read science books of Victorian age. I know about 4 types. Whose essay will be better? ये किसका सबसे बेहतर होगा? You will say the one, sir, जिसने सब पढ़ा है. Because he knows about novel, he knows about poetry, he knows about political issues, he knows about scientific theories by Charles Darwin. So this essay, written by the final person, last person, comes from this knowledge, this knowledge, this knowledge, this knowledge. These knowledge are intermingled. So this essay is intertextual reference. 4 अलग अलग किताबों का textuality को interrelate किया, 4 किताबों के knowledge को interrelate किया, और जो भी knowledge है that's called intertextuality या intertextual understanding. बहुत आसान है. Now let's go for it. These are the types of intertextuality. Question 2019, second shift. Types of intertextuality. Technically, there are 4 major types, but then a lot of critics came with their types. So I am mentioning you all the types of intertextuality. First of all, इनको note करो. What are the titles? Types of intertextuality. Types of intertextuality. All the students who are in Renewal online batch, just think, did you know these things earlier? क्या ये पहले आता था? अगर नहीं आता था, तो remember this thing. This is what you have paid for, knowledge. और अभी बहुत advanced आने वाला है. I am going to deal with one by one with all the literary terms. In Renewal Advanced course, my focus is not on British history. My focus would be on theory, culture studies, linguistic, plus there are 90% chance that next 10 to 15 days syllabus would be changed. So if syllabus gets changed, digital humanities, electronic literature, post-humanism, I will teach you all these things. Ethnocentric post-humanism. So I will be providing you knowledge about all these things. Types of intertextuality. Now let's deal with one by one. अब इन सबसे बात करते हैं. What are these things one by one? First one, let's take first one, parody. First one is parody. Parody means when there is a serious story and you retell the serious story in a funny way. When you retell a serious story in a funny way. Famous example, George Chapman's, remember my offline batch students, George Chapman's famous work, Batra, Komi, Yo, Makia. Even online students, remember I have taught you this thing. George Chapman's famous work, Batra, Komyo, Makia. This is actually the battle of frogs and mice. चूहों की और मेंढक की लड़ाई. The battle of frogs and mice. A fight. But this fight of battle of frogs and mice is actually a parody. It is a funny narration of Iliad, famous war issue. होमर की इलियड का फनी नरेशन है. So parody is what? Funny narration of a serious issue. Famous example, Chapman's Batra Comio Machia. How do we have intertextuality? How do we have intertextuality here? When he wrote the funny story, when he wrote the funny book, book 2, funny book, did he know about the book 1? Is it possible to write a funny version parody without knowing the original story? Not possible. So first thing, he knew about the serious story Iliad. So he constantly took reference to make each and everything funny. Means this is intertextual narration. One book he knew, took reference of one serious book to write a funny book. So constant references, intertextuality. Can you mimic somebody? Can you do the mimicry of someone without knowing that person? That's not possible. So if you know Shah Rukh Khan, you can do mimicry. If you know Nana Patekar, you can do mimicry. So when you mimic that person, you do the parody. You focus on his style, his things, and convert it. So he's also connected. This is also connected. This is intertextual. So parodies need 2 books or 3 books to write down. This is a very famous and easy example. Batra Comio Machia. Please do not forget this thing. Intertextuality pe on YouTube, you will not find lectures by any Indian. So respect this video, watch it up. Now, we have done parody. The next one we have is pastiche. Next one we have is pastiche. Ab dekho, what is pastiche? First of all, pastiche is a postmodern device. It is a postmodern term, pastiche. What is this? When you write a textbook, but in your book, nothing is original. You have just picked references from everywhere and arranged it. You did not write anything original. You just picked one line from here, second line from there, third line from here, fourth line from anywhere, and arranged all the lines. That is compilation. That is pastiche. हिंदी में कहीं की ईंट कहीं का रोड़ा भानुमती ने कुनबा जोड़ा. So best example, नहीं समझ में आया? Best example देखो, समझ में आएगा. Modern epic, Wasteland, written by T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot. Wasteland is one of the finest example of pastiche. 5 languages, 35 allusions. So in that book, every second line, third line is taken from some book. Hamlet tak ke references hain, Bhagavad Gita ke references hain. In short, to write Wasteland, T.S. Eliot took reference of many books, which is intertextuality. This is intertextuality. Multiple books mein se, multiple texts mein se brought references and brought here. So that is also one of the finest example. Pastiche is a post-modern term. Remember, people who will sit in competition will not know these things. The third one, referencing. When you take references, it's easy. It's quite easy. My style. When I teach, to prove my point, sometimes I take references from this book, sometimes I take reference from that book. So when you take references, or suppose you are PhD students, you are writing a book taking references, you mention the quotations, all of these things are intertextual reference. Because reference तभी लोगे जब आपने कोई किताब पढ़ रखी होगी, ठीक है? So that is referencing. Referencing, because when you have read some books, then only you can take reference. Then quoting. If you are writing a PhD thing, or if you are writing a paper presentation, you're going for paper, you are working on proposal, you quote according to John Milton, according to John Donne, according to William Shakespeare, right? Remember my lecture of Elizabethan when I taught you this thing, I told you, John Milton says, we suddenly see England as a strong and poisoned nation, rising herself from a long sleep and shaking her invincible locks. Or when I was teaching you Geoffrey Chaucer, Canterbury Tales, I took a reference of Dryden and said, here is God's plenty. That is called quoting. That is also example of intertextuality, because if you do not know other books, you cannot take quotations and references. Then comes allusions or alluding, where two or three texts are interconnected and that reference is sometimes confusing. Allusions, references, allude. In short, one text, second text, third text, sometimes interconnected, sometimes they are based on each other. That's quite simple. For example, Charlotte Bronte wrote Jane Eyre and Jean Rhys wrote White Sargasso-Sea. Jean Rhys White Sargasso-Sea is not possible if there is no Charlotte Bronte, there is no Jane Eyre. So that is one book, second book, third book, or any book. That's reference with each other, connection with each other. हर book का आपस में एक connection होता है. The next one, calque. Calque is also called loan words or the loan references. You are writing one book. In book 1, there are so many words that you have taken from book 2 or book 3. For example, English writers in Elizabethans, in Restoration, they used to write many things in Latin. For example, in Hamlet, que sera sera. So these words are borrowed from other books in Latin, right? So in short, calque means loan words, words which are borrowed. So if one book has words which are taken from other books, kind of pastiche, so that is also the example of intertextuality. Then these are fundamental basic differences. Optional. When you are writing something, जब आप कुछ लिख रहे हैं या आपको research कर रहे हैं, there you have optional references. In short, suppose if you are reading a book on geography, आप एक किताब पढ़ रहे हैं geography में. So if you're not able to understand one idea, you can read second book of geography, third book of geography, fourth book of geography. So you have multiple options and there are optional studies. You can choose, you can take references. So that is a fundamental intertextual reference. Then obligatory. Obligatory is which is compulsory. In research work, you cannot write. Obligation होती है, obligatory. In research work, you cannot write without making references. If you write a PhD research, you write a paper presentation, you have to mention other books. Bibliography is obligation. So it's a mentioned thing, it's an important thing. अगर आप एक research paper लिख रहे हो, आपको बताना ही पड़ेगा that my research paper is based on these books, primary sources, secondary sources. That is bibliography. So again, that's very important thing. It's an obligatory thing. Then comes accidental intertextuality. Accidental intertextuality is when you make references without knowing. Means you are saying something and you speak certain things where the book references are taken from book 1, book 2 and book 3. Accidental corrections. Remember when the movies are performed, the first message comes that if there is accidental connection with any event, anything, we are not responsible. So even if you're trying to take no references from any book, it is quite possible that because your mind itself is based on intertextual understanding. So by chance you took some references without knowing. Suppose you are saying something, you don't know that you have read it from other sources, but it is actually the other source reference, accidental reference. Easy language, where you try not to take any reference from the book, but you don't know that your knowledge itself is taken from various books. So accidentally you give a great example. Accidentally you mention some good things. That is accidental intertextuality. I believe आपको ये चीज समझ में आ गई होगी, जहां पे बाकी स्टूडेंट्स को अभी भी नहीं पता होगा कि इंटरटेक्सुअलिटी क्या होती है. आपको उसकी बारीकी भी पता चल गई है और आपको उससे रिलेटेड डिटेल्स भी पता चल गई है. This was the lecture. Next lecture, I'm going to talk about the theory called Joyceans. I will be providing a proper lecture on the theory of Joyceans. and backlash. Most of these students studying these things, they do not go for these theoretical things. So who are the people who have propounded the theory, and who is Susan Faludi? What is backlash? What are the other theories related to this? So next lecture would be on Joyceans and backlash. All the students who are still not added in renewal batch, अगर आप renewal में batch में join नहीं हो, तो first of all please remember you should be old student. पहले तो यही याद कर लो, it's only for old students. It's only for old students. If you are fresh batch student, गलती से भी join मत कर लेना, सर के ऊपर से जाएगा. It is a high level thing, and with the time, as I told you, within 10 days I will have my complete professional studio. I will increase the amount. We will go for paper solutions, we'll go for theoretical paper solutions, finding out the questions of theories. So, if you still want to join renewal batch, this is the fee structure, 6,000. This is the duration, 12 months. 6,000, 12 months. Monthly हो गया आपका 500, 500 रुपए per month. UGC Net English. Google Pay, Phone Pay, and this is the number. Send screenshot on the same number. Get registered only if you're damn serious. And remember, we believe in giving results. This time India's topper, UGC Net English topper in India. So Kirti is from offline batch. 71.33%. Another student with 70% is from online batch. He's from West Bengal. Soon I will be posting his interview video. Then there are some other students scoring 68 and 69%. Mark my words. So, if you want to learn like them, be prepared like them, study like them, make sure that you study like champions, you be a champion. This is the detail. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the lecture.